Dragonfly in yin yoga is one of those postures that can be a bit of a stitch up. It targets the hamstrings, so the back of the thighs, and it also targets the adductors. Can feel like, it's all really one region. But unless the hamstrings have got enough give in them in the first place, it's often very difficult to come forward, as this is a forward fold that might bring you all the way to the floor. And if the hamstrings are tight, they attach in the bottom of the pelvis is not actually going to be able to round forward. So sometimes what I see in Dragonfly, with all the best intentions and effort from students, is something like this. And what I can assume is going on there is the hamstrings are so tight, they're almost pulling the pelvis under. Sometimes I even see people holding onto their pants, really trying to come forward, and all they're getting is that flexion in the top of their spine. I'm looking at you fellas. And as I look around the room, I think to myself, I don't know if that person is getting much value out of feeling stuck in their body, especially when it really is there to target the lower body. So there's a couple of things that you could either try for yourself if you're like, yes, that's me, or if you're a yin teacher and you see that and you think, what can I do to help this person get access to those target areas? In yoga, we usually get told if someone's rounding in their lower back and trying to come forward that they should sit up on a block. That's a textbook thing that we get told to do. So you could try that. I'm a big fan of not one but two. Sitting on 2 blocks, it just gives you, a VIP seat. Especially if you've got like a large lad in your class and, he'd like a bigger seat than a tiny little block. Now that might help. That might help a little bit to come forward. What that might do though is expose the back of the knees. If someone's got slightly hyperextended knees, you might also want to now tuck a couple of cushions under their knees. But here's the thing, you might still just get this. So it's always really important to check in with your student and say, okay, now where are you feeling? And if they are getting a little bit more down here and it feels satisfactory to them, that might be great. That might have been good troubleshooting. Something else that I will do though, if it's not, and if they just look really stuck, is to turn the shape upside down. And that might actually mean that you take that student to the wall. When you turn Dragonfly upside down, essentially you take the pelvis out of the equation completely and you get to use the benefit of the wall. So when everyone else is in the shape and they're dropping in, just check with that student and see, do you want to try something? And gently bring them over to the wall and just help them figure out how to come in. So they want to be fairly close to the wall and then swing themselves down into the floor and bring their legs up. And then just slowly with time, allow the legs to open. And then you can really invite them to find that feeling of letting the heels fall into the wall. So now gravity is helping the legs to open. And hopefully this is then shifting that sensation to those target areas. And the pelvis doesn't have to try and turn because we've taken the upper body out of the equation. And that tends to be a really good way to navigate around tight hamstrings and a kind of posteriorly stuck pelvis for some people's bodies. Of course, you want to check in with them and see, how has that shifted things? Do they feel comfortable to be there for a while? Last little bit about that is that when they come into their rebound, get them to try and bring their knees into their body versus trying to lift their legs up and activate their muscles, because that's going to feel really hard. And then they could just leave their legs resting against the wall in a Viparita Karani kind of position, and that can be their rebound versus quickly scurrying back to their spot in the room. And they might actually start to really love that shape, helping them to get access into their hamstrings, because if their hamstrings are tight, it's likely that they never get to stretch them because the hamstrings themselves stop the body being able to stretch them. So they're just a couple of ideas that I have for you about Dragonfly.